Welcome to this 365 Freedom Strategy session. Today we're breaking down the mechanics of StorySell and why your brand's power is tied to your ability to trust your own voice over the market's noise.
It is excellent to be here. We're doing something a bit different today. We are moving entirely past the tactical layer.
Right, no funnels today.
Exactly. We aren't talking about copy hacks, and we certainly aren't talking about chasing algorithm updates. We are going to excavate the strategic bedrock of your business. We need to analyze the signal-to-noise ratio in your own head.
Because that internal metric directly correlates to the external potency of your brand.
Precisely.
You know, that concept of signal to noise, it's usually reserved for audio engineering or maybe physics, but applying it to leadership psychology fits perfectly.
It is a one-to-one transfer.
Because if the noise is too loud, the signal distorts. And if the signal distorts, the market simply can't hear you.
And if they can't hear you, or I should say, if they can't feel you, then you are just another commodity. You end up competing on price and features.
Which is a race to the bottom.
Always. You need to be competing on conviction. But to fix that, we first have to define the environment you are operating in. We call this the noise economy.
Let's define that surgically. Because noise is a word that gets thrown around constantly. Usually people think of it as distraction, right?
Right. The ping of a Slack notification.
Or the endless scroll of social media, or even just the literal sound of a busy open-plan office.
But in the 365 Freedom methodology, we are not talking about acoustics. Acoustic noise is highly manageable.
You just buy noise-canceling headphones.
Exactly. The noise economy refers to a very specific psychological condition. In our framework, noise is defined as the accumulation of external expectations.
The accumulation of external expectations, that feels heavy just saying it out loud.
It is an incredible weight. It compounds over time. If you were to run an audit on the mental environment of the average founder or executive, you would find it incredibly crowded.
Standing room only.
Yes. But if you look closely at who is occupying that space, it is rarely the founder themselves.
It's a committee.
It's a massive committee.
You have the voices of parents,
Old bosses.
coworkers from 3 jobs ago. You've got industry peers who you are secretly jealous of.
And then there's the most dangerous group of all.
The expectations of people you barely even know.
Right. That is the demographic that really exposes the absurdity of the condition we operate in.
It's totally irrational. We are literally mortgaging our strategic direction, our creative freedom, our business models, all of it based on the perceived opinions of absolute strangers.
It sounds completely irrational when articulated like that, but I assure you, it is the baseline condition for the majority of the market today.
Because we are social animals. We are wired for tribal acceptance.
We are. And in a pre-digital world, your tribe was what, 50 people? 100 people? You could theoretically manage those expectations.
But in the noise economy, the tribe is the entire internet.
Theoretically, yes. You have thousands of invisible eyes on you at all times, or at least it feels like you do. And this creates a very specific behavioral pattern.
This is what we refer to as the stage metaphor. This metaphor is so critical for understanding why so many entrepreneurs feel completely burned out, even when their metrics say they are winning. Walk us through the mechanics of the stage metaphor.
Imagine the sensation of living your entire professional life on a stage you never auditioned for.
Okay.
You wake up in the morning, the curtain goes up, and the lights blind you. You immediately put on the costume that everyone expects you to wear.
The founder costume, the thought leader costume.
Exactly. And you recite the lines perfectly. You hit your marks. The audience actually applauds. You are getting the validation. But here is the fatal flaw in the system who wrote the script.
You didn't write it.
You never even saw the script before you started reciting it.
The market wrote it.
The market, your family history, the industry gurus you follow. You are performing a script written by others, which is often based on completely outdated data or someone else's very narrow definition of success.
And we need to be clear here, this isn't just some philosophical issue about finding your authenticity.
No, this is an operational hazard.
It's catastrophic operationally.
It is. When you are performing a role that is misaligned with your internal strategic intent, the system generates friction.
And in physics, friction creates heat. But in leadership psychology, friction creates exhaustion.
But we need to diagnose a specific type of exhaustion.
Right, because it isn't the physical tiredness of a hard day's work. Everyone knows the difference.
There's a good tired. The tired where you feel accomplished, where you move the needle. This is not that.
This is the exhaustion of small frustrations that feel much bigger than they actually should.
That is the exact diagnostic marker we look for when consulting with leaders. If a minor email delay ruins your entire morning,
Or a slightly rude comment from a vendor sends you into a total tailspin.
that is not a stress management issue.
Yeah.
You don't need breathing exercises for that. That is a symptom of systemic misalignment.
It's the check engine light flashing on the dashboard.
Precisely. The stress itself isn't the core problem. The stress is the indicator that the machine is literally fighting against itself.
Because you are spending 80% of your energy just maintaining the persona on the stage.
Which leaves you with a fraction of your capacity to actually run the business. You are operating at a massive deficit from the moment you wake up.
And the tragic part is, most people try to fix this by just getting better at acting.
They try to manage the stress. They meditate so they can tolerate the stage better. They optimize their morning routine to handle the script.
But the solution isn't to become a better actor in a play you despise.
The solution is to get off the stage entirely.
Which brings us to the core proposition of this session. We have a foundational principle in StorySell that acts as the primary lever for this whole transformation.
The pivot point.
Right. It goes like this. A new story forms when you decide to trust the voice inside you more than the noise around you.
That is the binary switch between a brand that constantly struggles and a brand that scales with momentum.
If you build a business based on noise, meaning you are looking at what is currently trending, you are copying your competitors' landing pages.
You are shaping your core offer based on what you think people want you to be.
Right. If you do that, you are building a structurally fragile system.
Because the noise is always changing.
It changes hourly.
It does. If your strategy is tethered to external validation and market trends, you are building on quicksand. You will forever be reactive.
Always one step behind the algorithm.
But if you build on voice, on your own internal narrative conviction, you are building something anti-fragile.
Anti-fragile, meaning it actually gains strength from disorder.
Exactly. The market can crash. Social media platforms can change their rules overnight. Industry trends can flip completely. But if your directional signal is internal, you remain stable.
You have a defined center of gravity.
And in a chaotic market, customers subconsciously gravitate toward stability. They gravitate toward leaders who definitively know who they are.
So we have established the conflict here. It's voice versus noise, the script versus the truth. I want to move this from abstract theory into concrete reality.
Let's do it.
We have a specific case study in our files that perfectly illustrates this. We call it the park bench moment.
This is a granular analysis of how a strategic breakthrough actually occurs in real time. And we need to treat this almost like a forensic scene investigation.
Because the physical details actually matter.
The environment matters immensely. Set the scene for us.
Okay, the subject is in the exact state we just described. The stage has become unbearable. It's been a long day of small, compounding frustrations that feel massive.
The noise is at peak volume. Mental chatter, anxiety, the constant pressure to perform the script.
Right. So they physically leave the environment. They walk out of the office, they walk out of the house, and they go for a walk. And they sit down on an old wooden bench.
There is a detail here that we need to isolate. The notes specify that the bench creaks when you shift your weight.
Why focus on that specific auditory detail?
Because it grounds the entire experience in physical reality. When we are trapped in the noise economy, we are living entirely in our heads.
We are simulating future disasters.
Or we are looping past mistakes. We were completely disembodied. But the sound of the wood creaking under your weight, that is physics. That is happening right now.
It forces a sensory reset.
Exactly.
And the action itself, shifting weight, it feels highly symbolic. You literally have to physically adjust your posture to find comfort. You have to let yourself breathe.
That is the physiological component of a pattern interrupt. In the noise economy, we constantly hold tension in our bodies.
We hold our breath without realizing it. We clench our jaws.
The moment on the bench, the creak, the physical shift, the long exhale, it signals to the parasympathetic nervous system that the immediate threat has passed.
The performance has stopped, even just for 10 seconds.
And it is only in that brief pause that the quiet factor can actually do its work.
We really cannot overstate the necessity of silence here. The environment was quiet enough that we can finally hear something other than our own doubts.
Which implies something crucial about the fundamental nature of strategy. The signal, the true directional intent was always there.
It wasn't that the signal was missing. It was simply that the interference was too high.
Exactly. We operate under this illusion that we need to go out into the market and find a strategy. We think we need to manufacture a brand new disruptive idea.
But the 365 freedom methodology argues that the directional signal is always broadcasting. It is an internal constant.
The noise of external expectations simply jams the frequency. You do not need to create the signal. You just need to reduce the interference.
So in that moment of silence, on that park bench, a thought surfaces. And it is a devastatingly simple thought.
You already know what you want. You're just afraid to trust it.
And note the psychological reaction to that thought. It is described as a startling clarity.
Which is a paradox, if you think about it. If you already knew it, why would it be startling?
Because truth cuts.
It does. We spend an immense amount of cognitive energy constructing fog. We rationalize, we equivocate, we distract ourselves constantly.
We build these complex mental labyrinths just to avoid facing the simple truth of what we actually want to do.
Because what we want to do usually requires taking a risk. It requires dropping the script. So when the truth finally cuts through all that manufactured fog, it feels like a physical shock.
It feels like waking up.
And this is the key differentiator we have to highlight. The voice itself was not loud.
No, it did not shout, it whispered.
Contrast that with the noise.
The noise is absolutely deafening. Fear shouts. Insecurity screams at you.
The market is a giant megaphone, constantly blaring urgency and FOMO.
We are completely conditioned to believe that volume equals importance.
If it's a major business decision, we expect it to arrive with a marching band.
We expect a burning bush moment.
But our approach teaches that the true directional signal is almost always a whisper. It is the quiet, steady thought underneath the loud panic.
And it doesn't shout because it doesn't need to compensate for anything.
It doesn't have to sell you on itself, it just is.
But because it whispers, it requires an entirely different listening protocol.
If your internal receiver is calibrated only for the shouting of the market, you will miss your own strategy completely. You will walk right past it every single day.
So let's map the progression. We have the realization. We are on the bench. We hear the whisper. I know what I want.
Maybe it's, I want to fire our biggest client.
Maybe it's, I want to completely change my pricing model. Or, I want to stop offering this legacy service that drains my team.
We know it. The signal is clear.
But then, we don't execute, we freeze. Which brings us directly to Section 3, the validation filter.
This is the invisible trap that kills more businesses than any economic downturn ever could.
Define the validation filter for us.
It is the subconscious processing mechanism where we take that pure, clear internal whisper and we immediately feed it into a machine called what will other people think.
It is the phantom board of directors living in our head. We feel like we need a unanimous vote before we can send a single email.
But look at who sits on that board. It's populated by people who are wildly unqualified to vote on your operational reality.
We end up paralyzed by waiting for someone else to confirm the direction.
We are literally waiting for an external authority figure to look at our internal truth and say, yes, that is a statistically valid feeling. You have formal permission to proceed.
We call this the permission paradox.
It is a paradox because the specific validation you are waiting for is structurally impossible for anyone else to give you.
Unpack that. Why is it structurally impossible?
Because the vision is yours alone. That soft signal we talk about it is entirely internal to you. You're the only person on Earth with access to the raw data.
You are feeling the intuition. You are seeing the endpoint of the vision.
And no one else can see it. So when you present it to them and ask them to validate it, you are asking them to judge a blueprint they cannot read.
You are asking them to scientifically confirm a feeling they do not feel.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And so what is their natural reaction going to be? Of course they will be skeptical.
Of course they will say, that sounds incredibly risky, or I don't see anyone else in the industry doing that right now.
They are judging your vision based on their script, not your reality.
And the hard truth we all have to eventually swallow is this. Stories do not unfold through other people's approval.
If you wait for your new path to make logical sense to your parents or your peers or your competitors, you will be waiting until you are dead.
Innovation, by its very definition, looks like a mistake to the status quo.
If everyone in the room immediately agrees with your new direction, you aren't leading. You are following a trend.
There is a line in our breakdown that I want to highlight heavily. It says, I realized I had been waiting for someone else to confirm the direction I felt called toward.
That waiting is not a neutral, passive act.
No, it is an active drain on resources. We need to discuss the cost of rationalization.
This is where we calculate the actual energy bill of this behavior.
Think about the sheer caloric burn of chronic indecision.
You have a truth. Let's say I need to pivot the company. That truth is simple. It is clean. It takes zero energy to simply hold that truth.
But you are terrified to act on it without a safety net.
So you spend weeks, months, sometimes multiple quarters, trying to rationalize it to the committee.
You build elaborate financial spreadsheets.
You conduct endless market research. And you weren't doing the research to learn anything new.
No, you are doing it to justify the feeling you already have. You poll your friends. You seek permission under the guise of gathering feedback.
We construct these massive, elaborate logical structures just to try and make our gut feeling look like hard data.
We try to make the true look rational to outsiders.
But there is almost always a conflict there. Logical market analysis, which just means looking at what the herd is currently doing, will almost always contradict narrative conviction.
Narrative conviction, that is the ultimate target state.
Narrative conviction is the precise moment when your internal story becomes strong enough to completely override external doubt.
The transformation occurs when you realize you do not need the path to make sense to anyone else.
As the methodology clearly states, it is not supposed to.
That is such a liberating operational concept. It is not supposed to make sense to them.
It isn't. It is your strategic narrative, not theirs. Why on earth should it make sense to a spectator in the cheap seats?
This leads us seamlessly into Section 4. We need to break down the actual mechanics of trust, because we are asking founders to trust something soft over something hard.
And in the business world, soft is usually an insult.
We want hard data, hard assets, hard contracts, hard KPIs.
That is the linguistic trap of corporate culture. We have been trained to equate soft with uncertain, and we equate hard with true.
But the principle we operate on is the exact opposite.
Yeah.
Soft does not mean uncertain. Soft often means true.
It is counterintuitive, but it is a law.
How can something be both soft and absolutely certain?
Think about gravity. Gravity is soft. You can't touch it. It doesn't shout at you. It doesn't have a flashy marketing budget or a pitch deck.
But it is absolute.
It is a constant, quiet force that entirely dictates physical reality. Your internal truth, the whisper on the bench, operates exactly like gravity.
And the loud voices, the hard data of the noise economy.
The loud voices are almost always compensating for a lack of substance. Fear is loud because it is inherently unstable.
The market shouts because it is desperate for your attention.
But the truth doesn't need to shout because it isn't going anywhere. It doesn't need to convince you. It just sits there, patiently waiting for you to stop panicking.
The key metric here isn't volume, it's persistence.
Persistence is the ultimate audit tool. The text describes it as the thought you keep circling back to.
The feeling you cannot shake.
The direction that keeps returning, no matter how many times you logically push it away.
I guarantee everyone listening right now can identify that specific feeling. It's the business idea you had 5 years ago that you formally killed in a board meeting, but it keeps popping into your head in the shower.
It's the book you secretly want to write. It's the highly polarizing product you want to launch.
That recurrence is not randomness.
It is not a glitch in your brain. That is guidance. The very fact that the idea survives your repeated attempts to ignore it is the ultimate proof of its validity.
So, returning to the park bench case study, the note reads, "That moment on the bench did not give me a new direction. It simply reminded me of the one I had been ignoring."
This has massive strategic implications. You rarely need new ideas to fix your business.
But we are utterly obsessed with novelty.
We are addicted to it. We think we are always one growth hack or one software tool away from success.
But the solution is almost always archaeological in nature.
You have to dig up the exact thing you deliberately buried because you were too afraid to trust it.
The fundamental problem is not a lack of knowledge. You already know what you want.
The problem is exclusively a lack of trust. You are just afraid to trust it.
And that specific fear is what keeps us trapped on the stage, performing the tired script, exhausting ourselves for an audience that doesn't actually care about us.
So we have the diagnosis now. We clearly see the trap of the validation filter. We recognize the whisper. Now we have to actually move.
Section 5 is about operationalizing the voice. How do we take this psychological realization and turn it into a hard execution strategy?
The transformation point is highly precise.
Yeah.
It happens in the exact moment when you stop needing others to tell you your truth is valid.
That is the flip. That is when you physically take back the pen and start writing your own script.
You stop outsourcing your strategic authority to the committee. You realize that narrative conviction is the only actual asset that matters.
The notes mention that this internal voice is the foundation of your inner story and simultaneously the foundation of your next story.
That distinction is incredibly important. The next story.
If you are trying to build the next chapter of your brand, whether that's a pivot, a new product launch, or a total rebrand, you absolutely cannot build it on the foundation of the old noise.
It structurally will not hold the weight. If you build a business model simply to satisfy an external market expectation, you are essentially building a Hollywood facade.
It looks great from the street.
But there is nothing behind it. The moment the wind blows, the moment the market shifts or the economy dips, the facade instantly collapses because there is zero structural integrity.
But if you build on your own deep conviction,
That is poured concrete. That holds up under immense pressure.
let's get very tactical here. We need the listener to perform an immediate audit.
The question is simple, but it is highly uncomfortable. I want every leader listening to ask themselves this right now. What is the truth I already know, but keep postponing?
Identifying the postponement is the key metric. What exact action are you delaying?
Are you delaying a partnership breakup? A mass resignation? A risky launch? A very difficult conversation with your co-founder.
That postponement is the exact location where all your operational power is leaking out.
You are spending massive amounts of daily energy just holding the door shut on that truth.
And once you identify the postponement, you have to execute an action. The instruction is highly specific. Write the truth you've been waiting for others to validate.
Write that truth down. And we mean physically write it. Pen to actual paper.
Why is the analog physical act of writing so important here?
Because internal thoughts are entirely fluid. They are vapor.
You can rationalize a thought away in about 5 seconds.
Exactly. But when you write it down on paper, you force it into matter. You create a physical contract with yourself. It becomes an object in the real world that you can no longer conveniently ignore.
It forcefully transitions from the soft world of internal feeling to the hard world of external reality.
You are manifesting the signal. You are giving it physical weight.
And finally, let's talk about the integration. How does this internal psychological work directly connect to the StorySell outcome? How does this actually help you build a more profitable brand?
Your story grows stronger when you trust the voice that comes from within you. This is the ultimate secret to magnetic marketing.
We talk about StorySell not as a clever copywriting technique, but as a literal transfer of conviction.
People do not buy features. People buy conviction.
The market is absolutely starving for conviction right now.
The world is completely saturated with noise. It is full of people pretending, full of brands reading AI-generated scripts, full of mimicry.
When someone finally stands up and speaks with absolute, unwavering narrative conviction, when they trust their own voice completely, it cuts through the market noise like a laser.
That is what attracts the premium customer. Not the feature list, not the competitive price point. It's the signal strength of the founder.
It's the purity of the signal. The market is drowning in an ocean of noise. It is desperately looking for a lighthouse.
And when you trust your own voice, you become that beacon. You become the one fixed point they can actually trust, simply because you so clearly trust yourself.
That is how you sell without selling. That is how you lead an industry.
So the journey here is not about adding more tactics to your playbook.
It's about aggressive removal.
We are surgically removing the noise. We are removing the crippling need for external permission. We are throwing away the scripts we didn't write.
We are stripping the entire structure down to the studs so we can finally build something that actually lasts.
Exactly.
That brings us to the close of this session. But before we wrap up today, I want to leave you with one final thought to mull over.
Let's hear it.
We talked extensively about the whisper. We talked about how easy it is to ignore because it operates at such a low volume.
Right.
But consider this. What if the whisper isn't quiet because it's weak? What if it's quiet because it's incredibly close?
That is the exact reframing we need.
If we connect this to the bigger picture of human interaction, think about intimacy. You don't shout at someone who's standing right next to you.
Yes, bro.
The noise of the market shouts at you because it is distant. It is far away from your core. But your truth, it whispers because it is coming from the very center of who you are.
It is deeply intimate. It isn't weak at all. It is just patiently waiting for you to stop running, lean in, and listen.
If you're ready to stop waiting for validation and start leading with your own voice, visit 365 Freedom online to join the community. This has been a 365 Freedom Strategy session.